Hello, my name is Roger Firman from the UK Association for Accessible Formats. So glad you could join us. Today, as our guest, we welcome Gwyn McCormack, who is the founder of Positive Eye Limited. Her mission being to provide practical courses, consultancy, and a bespoke product range of resources for practitioners working with children and young people with visual impairment and additional learning needs. Gwyn, very warm welcome.
Thank you, Roger.
Gwyn, in 2008, you founded Positive Eye, but before we get to that, I wonder if you could sketch in your previous work and what brought you to the realization that you wanted to go in a different direction.
Thank you, Roger. I was a teacher of children and young people with vision impairments, and I'd been a teacher in St Helens of vision impairments for 11 years, a peripatetic teacher supporting children, mainly at that time in secondary. I had the secondary caseload for the whole of St Helens in the northwest, where I live, and I worked for the service in St Helens. And we went out into schools and homes supporting children and young people with a vision impairment. And my responsibility was the secondary caseload. And I worked there in St Helens for 11 years. And then I moved to a local authority in Tameside, where I was the head of service for 5 years. And I had a team of 20 teachers of vision impairment, teaching assistants, again, supporting children and young people across the town and across the area in homes, schools and colleges. So that was my teacher of the eye background. Prior to that, I was a fashion and textiles teacher for about 8 years before I had left to have my boys, and then came back in just as the government were wanting to include children with vision impairment in schools more, and that's how I sort of came back into the education sector. I'd been at home with the boys for 4 years and not working, and then I came back in as a teacher of the eye. And so I really loved my job, and I really loved my work, and I worked with brilliant teams of very dedicated, passionate professionals who were a joy to work with. But I came to the point where I felt that the way we were being asked to deliver services was not conducive to to the benefit of children, really. And I was, we had so many children of children's needs to meet, and really, was put in a position where I felt I couldn't cut the cake any thinner, and do justice to the children's needs. So personally, that became one step greater than I wanted to continue to take. And so I decided to leave my wonderful job and set up Positive Eye.
So, yes, so clearly a lot of things have been going on, a lot of things had happened in your life. So perhaps you could tell us about Positive Eye, and back at the start of that journey, what were your hopes, having clearly identified a gap you felt needed to be filled?
Well, my hope at the time was what it is now. It is to bring a very practical approach to a very small world of professionals who work, professionals and families, because I serve families as well as professionals in terms of courses and resources. But the hope was then, the hope is now, and continues to be, to continue to provide courses and resources that actually are practical in their approach and really meet the needs of professionals working with children and families too. Because we are such a small world, there is very little out there in terms of guidance, documentation to support the workforce. And I saw all the gaps in my job, but never had any time to do anything about it. So my hope was to take my knowledge and experience and to give back to the community that supports children with vision impairment in the best practical way possible. I never ever come at this as an expert. I don't think I am an expert, but I use just my knowledge and experience to look at ways of supporting children and young people with vision impairment in a very, you know, realistic, practical way. And that was my hope then, and it continues to be my mission now. In fact, it's probably a deeper desire now than it ever was.
Thank you very much. This is clearly you're really up for this, aren't you? So I wonder if you could tell us about your work, particularly with courses that you for QTVIs.
I have developed courses for QTVIs, qualified teachers of vision impairment, but they're also, my courses are suitable for school class teachers, early years practitioners, teaching assistants, and parents as well. They're not just specifically for teachers of VI. And really, I've developed so many courses, from courses on if you're new to working with a child and you have a child in your classroom, giving the basic skills and knowledge that you need to support a child, to running a whole QTVI course at the University of South Wales, and for 2 years, where I was training QTVIs specifically, to developing courses and programs really that go with the courses. So my courses are on visual skills, they're on, there's courses for tactile learners, there's courses on including a child who's a brailleist in mainstream, there's courses on a multisensory approach to literacy, on social and emotional well-being, on building independence. If I could highlight two, because there are so many, I think the thing to say about everything I ever do, I hardly ever use PowerPoint. If I use PowerPoint, it's only to show an image. I really am a practical presenter, and I will arrive wherever I'm delivering courses, or if I'm doing it online here, with many, many practical resources, 25 bags of stuff and more, only just able to get in the car to travel. And that's, I think, why I've become so loved, because people love to see the resources. So the two courses I guess are my flagship courses, or the ones I seem to do the most of. The first one is the Positive Looking Visual Skills Programme, which is a programme I wrote when I first left my job, and it gives activities, goals, observation points for each visual skill on the hierarchy of visual skill development. So from children who might just be visually aware, to visually attending, to fixating, to tracking, scanning, visually directed reaching, discrimination of objects, discrimination of images, and then children who are going to read print and access number and print. There's a hierarchy of development, and I always felt this was misunderstood, and our role in supporting children to achieve these skills was misunderstood, and I just knew we needed this programme that was simple to understand. So I wrote this programme when I first left my job, and now it's used internationally. It's used in Australia, New Zealand, Iceland, America. I've developed assessed courses where I train trainers, QTVIs, to become a positive looking trainer. They deliver another assessed course called my Positive Looking Practitioner course. It's used as a whole school approach across many special schools in the UK. And it really is such a huge difference maker. It's highly thought of by Professor Rachel Pilling, the consultant ophthalmologist from the Bradford NHS team, who really promotes its use in schools. So that's one course that's really popular, and I run cohorts all the time, and they're always full. So you know, it really underpins our knowledge as teachers of VI, teaching assistants, class teachers. Really, any teacher anywhere in mainstream or special needs to understand that visual skill hierarchy, because it's the foundation of children's development and often misunderstood. So that's one course that's very popular. And I guess my other is my multisensory approach to literacy. I'm very good at showing how to teach literacy in the everyday experience of the child who's visually impaired, or any other child with complex learning needs, that literacy is all around us. It's in the home, the garden, the bathroom, it's in having a snack, it's in getting ready for bed. And so my courses, the literacy course I do, very much links to the everyday experience, but I set it against a framework of the literacy access skills like tactile access, fine motor skills, concept development, book and story skills, language development. So it's very much linked to all the skills a child who's visually impaired or a brailleist, a child who's accessing by tactile methods would need to have to participate in literacy and learning, whether they're in mainstream or special schools. So I think those are the two, there's many more, but those are the two I think that I chose to highlight.
Excellent. During the last 14 years, is it your view that the need is the same as when you started, or has the landscape changed?
I think children's needs are the same. I listen very carefully to teachers of VI, teaching assistants, class teachers, and they still report the same challenges that I experienced as a head of service. Not enough time to adapt the curriculum materials that the children need. That's not catered for well enough in working out the time required. I don't think it's understood how time heavy that is or can be and what that requires. The lack of time for forward planning, which is absolutely crucial for children. Not enough time for training, to actually train the whole school, train the key teams. You're still in the position where you're lucky to get that time, because often the child who's visually impaired is one in the school and there are other children, a greater number of children with other needs, so the focus could be on them rather than the one child who's visually impaired, although they're high level need. So I think the needs of the children with vision impairment are not always understood by the budget holders. The reality of what the cost is of including a child with vision impairment in a mainstream or special school, I still don't think is fully understood. I think what it boils down to is the actual understanding of what it truly means for a child not to be able to see and what the impact of that is on learning and development. And so I don't think the landscape has changed in terms of that, because if we understood that and we recognised it and we responded, we wouldn't be getting what we still get now. So I don't think the landscape for children has changed. It needs to change, and we really need to put vision at the starting point for planning by budget holders, local authorities, and by class teachers at the very start of planning. And then for the teacher in the classroom, if they plan for that child first, all the other children's needs fall into place. So I think there's still a lot of work to do to change that landscape, and also to support the independence of children, so that although they need a lot of support, that we are making sure we enable their independence. I think there's the training for technology for children who are visually impaired. I mean, the technology training is huge, and often the teacher of VI only is one step ahead. So the money and the time for training for technology and all those things really need to be budgeted in really carefully, so that the needs of the child are properly, are really truly met.
Gwyn, I know you work both nationally and internationally. Have you found there are differences in how you present courses internationally? And if so, are there things you can point to?
Well, I have done a lot of training in the last 14 years. I've trained in, I think, over 12 countries on more than one occasion, quite often. And I would say that there are no differences. The needs are the same. So I guess sometimes the need is greater in a poorer country. I've trained in many countries, but underlyingly there are no differences. Everybody wants to know how to enable access for a tactile learner. Everybody needs to know how to enable access for a visual learner. Everybody wants to know ideas for resources. The social skills and development of supporting social and emotional well-being are the same. So when I was thinking about that question, there are no differences. I think the only difference is that I sometimes have to have an interpreter to translate what I'm saying. But that's really the only difference. The needs are the same wherever I go, whether it's America, Iceland, Hungary, Romania, France, Germany. That, you know, underlyingly, the needs are usually the same.
And working, as I know you have done, like many people with the pandemic, working online, have you found there's been a similar experience, a different experience working online or as in person with your courses?
Yeah, I mean, I think person to person, face to face will always win over, because there's the dynamic in the room and there's a camaraderie of spirit. And usually when I deliver training, I you know, 99.9% of the time get really brilliant feedback, and everybody goes out with a shopping list of things they're going to go and buy from the pound shop or IKEA. So face to face for me is always better, because I always take a lot of practical resources and they always like to look at those. So I show those online, but it's obviously they can't look at them directly. And for me, the other problem with working online is the people don't interact online as well as they do face to face. Often people have their videos off, and you don't know what they're thinking, you don't know what they're doing behind the black screen that you're seeing. And I find that, well, I used to, when I first started online, found that quite disconcerting. And I used to think I was just delivering training to myself in the end, because I could see myself on the big screen, but I never knew what anybody else was doing. So I prefer face to face, but I do so much training online. But my biggest difference is the interaction. For some reason, people tend to go behind their video cameras that are switched off, and you don't make the connection in the same way. So you're left imagining what they might be thinking. So it doesn't do your mental well-being very much good, really, I don't think. You have to be a tough trainer to ride that one out, actually, and not worry about that. And I don't worry about it actually anymore. I used to, but I don't anymore, because I think, well, you know, I can't do nothing about it. Can't make people put the video cameras on. But that would be my biggest thing of why I prefer face to face.
Yes.
So I'd rather struggle on the motorway and in all the traffic, and have all that hassle, and take my stuff with me and be in the room with people. It's much more fun as well.
Yes. Thank you very much. At this point, Claire, I'm just wondering, do we have any questions or a question to ask Gwyn?
Yes. With changes to the school curriculum, how do you see this impacting upon children with complex learning needs?
Well, it's the same as what I said, Claire. I think, you know, I think there needs to be definitely more training available for teachers, teaching assistants in schools who are working with children with complex learning needs, inclusive of those with vision impairment. I think we need to have more training on vision impairment at teacher training level. I think there needs to be a better understanding of the needs of children with vision impairment, and to make sure that there is planning time on the curriculum for the curriculum adjustments that are necessary. The forward planning needs to happen, and then the time for curriculum adaptations need to happen. So it will be the same as it was and ever will be. The fundamentals don't change regardless of what the curriculum is, or what the changes are. The needs of the child who's visually impaired don't change. Children are children, and children with vision impairment still have those needs, whether we're doing a very practical curriculum or an academically driven curriculum. So I think we'll always get what we've got until we understand those needs that I've just outlined. And it's a culture change that's so desperately needed, to have that recognition of the needs of children with vision impairment, and that understanding of the impact on learning and development, but also time for curriculum resources to be made accessible, because that's not as you'll know from UKAAF, it's not a quick process.
Indeed. Now, Gwyn, before we close, you're going to give us a flavour, a demonstration of one of your story time, I think, are we?
Yes.
Would you like to go ahead now?
Yeah, thank you.
And then thank you very much.
Thank you. So in March 2020, when COVID hit the world, my business went on hold and everything was cancelled. And I am not a person who sits and does nothing. And within a day or so of that happening, because it pretty much happened overnight for me, everything was cancelled. I decided that I wanted to do something to support the community of parents, of families, particularly children with complex learning needs, those with vision impairment, but also children with profound and multiple learning difficulties, where I knew it was going to be an incredibly long, difficult day, many days ahead of isolation. So for some reason, I decided to take my stories of Marvin, a little boy that I write stories about, and take them on Facebook. And I went live 3 times a week for 4 months, and I performed what it developed into a model of literacy, underpinned with teaching and learning practices for children with vision impairment, which I named along the way the Storytime Show. And hundreds of families from around the world found me on Facebook and joined this community, which all I can say was truly, truly beautiful. And so I quickly ran out of stories, and I had to start writing more. And I also had to start creating a lot more characters. And the whole thing evolved and developed. And then in September of 2020, I was already doing a lot of work in America, and I spoke with my American colleagues at the Deaf Blind projects there, from all the states, across Southeast Midwest states, and said, how about a storytime show for your children? And to cut a long story short, because there's so much to say, 2 years later, I have performed hours and hours of storytime shows for probably, I don't know, maybe 1,000 families by now, and more, and growing. And the love for this storytime show is phenomenal. It's incredible the difference it's making. In fact, we're about to do some research with Westchester University on the difference the storytime show is making. So it goes out live to families. I do show runs. I'm not live every single week of every single month, but I write a story, and it goes out over 4 shows, 5 shows, 6 shows, depending on the length of the story. But it's underpinned with good learning and practice for children with vision impairment. And so I wear I wear a bright neckerchief around my neck. I'm putting on a yellow one now. And I work against a black background, so I stand out. I've got a hot air balloon and a frog called Fabulously Fabulous Fabiano the Frog, who's on the wall behind me. These are all characters we've made. My husband and I make all the characters. And I use a simple rainbow wheel that I bought from the pound shop, like a windmill for the garden, and I spin that for the children at one point in the show. I'm going to do a burst of the show in a second, and I go wee, wee, wee. And I also tell the story, I tell Marvin's adventures using the characters I've created. I use cardboard. I buy grey board off Amazon, and I buy glitter paper, and we design characters. So this one I'm holding up is Deck the Decapus. I'm doing a storytime show tonight for America, so I'll get my things ready for that. And he's a blue octopus, but he's got 10 legs, which is why it's called Deck the Decapus. And he's got white and orange legs and a big happy smile on his face. and I have 100 characters that I've designed now. And our son Tom, who's 33, writes all the songs for the show and writes all the music, and I sing the songs. So I'm not a singer, I'm not an actor, and I'm not trying to be. The idea of the show is that the families can participate in meaningful literacy from home, and they can copy what I'm doing, so that I don't want it to be perfect. I want it to be homespun fun. But the joy the show has brought has just been incredible. I mean, I get feedback on a daily basis from the families who connect with me. So this is Marvin. He's got black hair, he wears black round frame glasses, has a big smile on his face. He's got a yellow jumper, green shorts and blue boots, and he's a really kind and helpful little boy. And in all his adventures, he's always kind and he's always helpful to all the fun characters he meets along the way. And then also on the show, I make a craft, and the craft is linked to whatever character I'm telling the story of that day. And all the families in America receive a craft box with all the craft materials for each character I'm making. And there's a sorority group in Mississippi, a big group of people who pack the craft materials, and they're mailed in boxes across America, and the families really, really love receiving those materials. And then while I'm making the craft on the show, they've got the right materials for the right character, and they can make the craft too. And like I say, this is all underpinned with good teaching and learning practices for children with vision impairment, inclusively of children with complex learning needs, inclusive of neurotypical children. So it suits all abilities, all ages, all needs, and the parents love it too. I think everybody loves the Storytime show. So I will just show, before I give a burst of the show, because once I start, I'll be singing to you in a minute. I want to just, if this will work, share a couple of photographs of the children. If I can locate there they are. They're in that one there. Okay. If I can share the screen. Oh, that didn't come up.
I suggest you go on, Gwyn.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, the feedback from the families has been incredible, and they really, truly love the Storytime show. It's brought great joy, and I don't have the words to share really to describe the difference it's making. When I was over in America recently, I've been training there for 7 weeks. I did some live shows, and the children really loved it. Okay, so here we go for a little burst of the Storytime show. I hope you're ready for this. It's quite loud and lively. But this is, obviously, I've got to engage with children who might not be paying, who take a lot of work to get their attention. So I put on my hat. I make glittery hats, and I've got a frog now. This is fabulous Fabiano the frog. Boys and girls, mums and dads, welcome to the greatest Storytime show ever! It's a family box of stories, Storytime show! What do? Welcome, boys and girls! Roll up, get your popcorn, get your ice cream, take your front row seats for the greatest Storytime show! Whoopity-doo! My name is Marvin, and I'd like to say I'm feeling oh so happy today. It's time for the next show to begin. With no more ado, take it away. Gwynny, Gwyn. Boys and girls, my name is... Gwyn, Gwynny, Gwyn. My name is Gwyn, Gwynny, Gwyn. Gwynny, Gwyn. My name is Gwyn, Gwynny, Gwyn. Are you ready for a wonderful rainbow spin? catch it. Let's count it down with a wonderful whoopity-doo of a 3 and a happy, fantastic, fun 2 and a whoopity-doo of a 1. Here it goes. Whee, 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 whee. Whoopity-doo. Oh, uh-oh. Hello, Marvin. Oh, hello, Gwynny Gwyn. What am I doing, Gwynny Gwyn? We're on the Storytime show, Marvin. We're having a practice run. We're doing UKAAF. We're doing a webinar. Oh, this is great, Gwynny Gwyn. I love to meet new people and make new friends. My name's Marvin. I'm a really kind and helpful little boy, and I love to meet all the boys and girls who watch this show. Can we sing our song, Gwynny Gwyn? Of course we can, Marvin. We love to sing our song. Here we go. Welcome to the wonderful world of Marvin. He's such a character. He's so charming. Time for adventure. Here we go. But Marvin won't appear unless we give a cheer for our hero. Whoopity-doo, whoopity-doo, doo, doo. Whoopity-doo. So Marvin and I then tell the adventures of Marvin, and I use all my glittery characters to do that. And I stand up and I have voices for all the characters. And this is one of the children's favourites, is Princess Peggy. She's got pink curly hair, a pink dress, and black sunglasses, and she's glittery and sparkly. And she sells pink ice cream, and I've had to write her into many stories because the children love her so much. Princess Peggy, we love Princess Peggy. So they really respond to the high contrast characters, and they respond to the voices that I use. You know, it's all about, the whole point of this is that we let go of our inhibitions and allow ourselves to have the fun and joy of story. A lot of parents of children who are visually impaired, complex learning needs, do not know where to start with story at home because the typical book doesn't offer them that. And what I'm showing is how you can do that at home in a fun way. So all the families get all the stories, they get all the songs, they get Tom singing the songs, they get the pictures of the characters. And the parents actually now, because they've watched the show for so long, are beginning to adapt the Storytime show to work for their children. So we feel very, very lucky and fortunate to do this work. And my mission is to reach every family in the UK. It's harder in the UK. It's much easier to reach the families in the USA. And I would really love to find a way to reach more children here. So there we go, Roger. That is a little burst of the show.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Gwyn. Thank you so much for your presentation. I'm sure we all enjoyed that, and I'm sure we all wish you continued success.
Thank you.
And it has been a great privilege having you as our guest, and probably we'll all run off and go and get the crafts now. Anyway,
Yeah,
thank you so much. Thank you. So a brief word about our next webinar on October the 4th. We're going to be joined by James Bowden, who will be joining us to talk about the work of the International Council on English Braille and many other things, I suspect. Many thanks to Claire for helping us behind the scenes, and from all of us, goodbye until next time. Goodbye.